It's either you live on on the upper side of the line, or you're living on the lower side of the line, right? If you live in the frequency of love, you're always going to confront opportunity and possibility. And if you live below the line, you're always going to feel threatened, attacked, and filled with fear. And so there's two frequencies in this life. It's the frequency of love or the frequency of fear. Where do you live? Do you live in the, below the line, and you're constantly facing resentment, revenge, and resistance? And then those three R's are kind of a part of who you are in your life. And those produce the results that don't serve you, right? So what actions are you taking that are serving you, and what actions are you continuing to take that don't serve you?
What's up, Maven? It's Gabe. Welcome back to another episode of the Maven Workshop podcast. Today we have an amazing entrepreneur, Carlos Nicasio, a good friend of mine. So I just want to showcase him today. Carlos is an entrepreneur, leadership coach, business consultant, and Christian communicator dedicated to helping people live and lead with purpose. He's the founder of Remark Global Consulting and Overstock Trade Direct, where he specializes in international sourcing, supply chain solutions, and wholesale distribution throughout the United States and Mexico. Carlos is a graduate of Azusa Pacific University, completed studies in urban ministry at Fuller Theological Seminary, is a certified coach through Clemmer Coaching Academy, and is a proud DeVos Urban Leadership Initiative alumnus. For more than a decade, Carlos has served as the chapel leader for the San Diego Padres baseball chapel, mentoring professional athletes and investing in the spiritual development of coaches and players. He also serves as the president and CEO of Catherine's Kids USA, a nonprofit organization providing hope and care for children with special needs in Baja California, Mexico. In addition, he's the founder of Concrete and Canvas, a ministry and creative initiative dedicated to inspiring faith, leadership, and purposeful living through biblical teaching, storytelling, and community engagement. Whether he's speaking on entrepreneurship, leadership, faith, or personal transformation, Carlos combines practical business experience with biblical wisdom to inspire others to build successful organizations, develop influential leaders, and create lasting impact in their communities. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Carlos Nicasio.
Hey, thank you for having me. That's a long list of accolades.
Hey, it is, man. It's good. That's definitely why I wanted to talk to you today. Hopefully, we can glean some wisdom from you based on your years of knowledge and experience.
Yeah, I'm here to serve.
If you could just kind of, I know read a whole lot there, but kind of what's going on in your life, right now.
Well, I would say most of my days invested in building the company that I founded in 2009, Remark Global Consulting. We're a consulting company that acts as a sales and marketing firm for U.S. and international companies who are selling goods into Mexico, whether it's in the food service industry or the janitorial supply industry. And so we specialize in identifying supermarket chains, large distribution channels, wholesalers all across Mexico and Latin America. And so we partner them with manufacturers in Asia and other parts of the world. So yeah, that's from that. We spun off to start our second company, which is Overstock Trade Direct, that specializes in liquidation inventories in those two same industries. And so yeah, most of my day is focused on developing the team, growing the company, and having a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I see your Instagram feed sometimes. Feet kicked up on a little boat in blue waters, or walking in the sand somewhere. So yeah, definitely. We'll talk about that a little bit. Let's go back to your past. Are you a San Diego native?
Yeah, born in Tijuana, raised in San Diego. My parents came to San Diego when I was probably like 9 months old, and just, been here ever since. And yeah, it was a cool experience. I would say for just growing up, not knowing a word of English, right, when I went to first kindergarten and then first grade.
Yeah.
Being that my mom and dad, my dad's from León, Guanajuato, my mom's from Guadalajara, and Spanish was the only language spoken in the house. So by the time I hit kindergarten, I didn't know a word of English. So it was an interesting season of life, being a kid. That created a lot of insecurity in me, I would say, because I couldn't connect with the kids. So I was an ESL student. Yeah, came to this country early on, and didn't speak a word of English, so that's interesting. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty much my roots.
Yeah, no, I see that. I teach at an adult school down in San Isidro, and so we have adults, right, that are ESL students that I can see the lack of confidence, right? These
Absolutely.
some people come with degrees from Mexico, but their English isn't there, and so it's an interesting place to be. I can imagine as a kid it was probably tough, but even more so as an adult, right? Like trying to navigate this life. So
Yeah, as a kid, I was challenged by that in so many ways. But I mean, I was set back in the fourth grade. I had to repeat fourth grade. It was just terrible. Like because I wasn't comprehending quite much the material, and so that brought, like you said, a lot of lack of confidence, lots of insecurity. And as a result of that, I was a really shy kid. I was a really introverted kid, and was really to myself in a lot of ways. And so I have had to overcome a lot of that over the course of life, specifically more when I was a teenager and into like, being a young adult and whatnot. And so, but hey, you know what? Everything is designed to get conquered. So eventually,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes I'm
No,
on the phone talking to some people, and they're like, they don't believe I'm Latino, Hispanic. And so now it's the other way around. So it's quite a journey. It was quite a journey.
yeah, that's good. You talked about, being, I guess, kind of being almost like an outsider, right? As a young kid and not feeling confident. Do you think that's played in? We'll get into it a little bit deeper, but your roots kind of as a coach and wanting to kind of mentor people and help people. Do you think that part of your life, the way you felt, had anything to do with, kind of your journey?
Absolutely. I mean, think about all the belief systems that you start to create in your mind as
Mm,
you're being challenged with language barriers. And you got to remember, everything is about language, words. Everything is about those things. And so, yeah, it created a tremendous amount of setback in me, and mindset wise, and just it was a real struggle for me. And so absolutely it creates a lot of, like I mentioned, belief systems and mindset issues. And those are things that over the course of time, you start to practice that enough, it becomes a part of who you are, and you start to behave the way that you think, and the next you know is you're deeper and deeper into a hole.
How did so going back to your company that you founded in, you said 2009. How did that whole thing get started? Considering, we'll go backwards here a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. So in 1992, I used to work for a company in Miramar. It was a food service distribution company, kind of like a US food service type model. And we serviced a lot of different restaurant chains. We One of the chains we serviced was Rubio's Fish Tacos. And so one day, Ralph Rubio, the owner at the time of Rubio's Fish Tacos, was walking through our facility, and basically they had signed a contract with Coca-Cola on drink cups. And so they went from vending Pepsi to now starting to vend Coca-Cola in their restaurants. And
mhm.
so Ralph asked us to liquidate the Pepsi labeled cups, and the only liquidation opportunity at the time was to call a recycler company and throw them in the trash and recycle them.
Wow.
So I saw that as an opportunity and a possibility. And I ended up with the inventory, and I sold the inventory across the border. And that's how this idea started at Overstock Trade Direct.
How
Yeah.
how old were you at that time?
I was 24 years old at the time.
So 24 years old, and you had the light bulb moment to like, hey, I could do this. Like where did that come from? Like
At
where
that
where do you think that?
at that point, I didn't know that I could turn it into a multi-million dollar business
Mhm.
necessarily, but I knew that I could turn this into a business, because being so close to the border, and Tijuana and Baja primarily is a paradise for overstock products. Yeah, it just, the light bulb just went on. I said, if I can find more products like this, then I'm gonna be able to make some money. And in that first deal, I made like $10,000. This is 1992. I made 10 grand on
The 24-year-old.
yeah, 10 grand, 100% profit.
Wow.
Cash in on 10,000 bucks in 1992 at 24 years old. And I said, sky's the limit. I'm going to go find every manufacturer in the US, in Asia, every importer, and I'm gonna go and find their liquidation inventories, their dead stocks, their overstocks, and we're gonna turn this into, an enterprise. And I told myself I'm gonna become the largest wholesaler of liquidation inventory in the food service industry on the Western United States. And guess what? I am.
Yeah,
I told
that's
myself I
awesome.
would do it, and I worked really hard to get to where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm a high pace, high energy when it comes to, doing what I do. And so every day I grind. Takes a lot of hard work, there's a lot of misconception out there that things come easy, but no, man, this is the grind. I get to do it every day. And that's why I incorporate so much fun into my life
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of the demands of, what I do. And so it's been great. That's where it all started, 1992.
Okay, so going deeper than that, that's where I'm trying to figure out. Like, where did you said you had the light bulb, you had the idea, like, I can make this a business. Like, did you have any growing up, like any entrepreneurial, any like mentorship? Like, what had your mind in a place where it's like, hey, I could do this? Like, because not everybody gets that. Not everybody could see that opportunity and say, this is what's possible.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a very determined person. Like,
Mm,
not only that, but like, I'm the kind of person that if you expose me to something that draws my attention, all of a sudden I'm very interested. And I'm very interested to find out everything I can about whatever it is that caught my attention. And so naturally I behave that way. So when this opportunity came, the next, I was thinking about the next sale, right? It's not what you did for me today, it's what you're gonna do for me tomorrow. And
hmm.
so, like, I was already thinking, okay, how do I build this thing out? What's next? And I'm just very ambitious in that way, where I'm just a go-getter, like, let's figure this out, let's build this thing out. And I've done that not just in like business, but also in ministry, and so like just naturally, I'm a pioneer. I have a strong entrepreneurial spirit, and I have a dream, and my dream is to create the best life that I can. And so, and how do I create the best life that I can and at the same time serve the people, right? Because everything that I've built is not for myself, it's for the kingdom of God. It's like what can I do to create, a financial engine where people benefit from that. And so you have to have the right mindset and the right vision, ahead. And so if you create a business for yourself, great. But if you create a business for others, better.
Wow. It's funny that you say that is that seems to be the thread that's running through these last few interviews that I've done with entrepreneurs that are in the kingdom, right? That are not focused on the bag, right? They're not focused on just getting the money and making something big for themselves or
Because
making a name big.
you create a business, you're obviously going to benefit from it. You
Right.
know, you're gonna level your lifestyle, because you're gonna have income, and so you're already gonna experience the blessing of heaven in that process. But what about others? What about the people that actually really need it? You know what I mean? And so, you have to have a winning mindset, man. You have to have a winning mindset. That's why I love Formula One racing, because if you think about it, right, you see all the Formula One wall
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Because if you think about it, I listen to the interviews of the drivers every single week. If anything, I don't, if I don't watch the race for whatever reason, most races I do watch at 6 in the morning on Sundays. But for whatever reason, if I missed a race, I will go back to the YouTube channel and I will listen to every single driver give a brief comment on the race experience for the day. And if you listen to these guys are young, they're in their early 20s. Tonelli's like 19, but you
Wow.
listen to these guys, they all have a winning mindset. They have no excuse at all. And so it's in their life, everything is about results. You understand what I mean? And so, life is about results. Are you happy with the result in your life right now? And if you are, great. And if you're not, what are you doing to change that result? And so you have to have a winning mindset. And so for me, if others win, I win, because when others win, I win. And that's just the way I think.
That's awesome. So what I'm gathering from all of that is that you, even with the success you've attained, you are still a student, right?
100%.
You're still studying the people that have achieved, a certain level of success. How important is it to continue to be a student in life?
It- one of the 6 human needs, right, of just the way that humans are built is growth, right? You were born and you were this size, and now, 50 years later, you're a totally different person. So, life in general is about growth. Everything is growing. And so understanding the importance of growth is, it's a game changer. And so you never stop growing. You never stop learning. And so you have to have, you always have to have that posture of what can I learn today? So I don't care who's in the room. I always walk in with beginner's mindset. You understand? Because
Mm,
I can learn something from somebody, even if they're way younger than me or they're way older than me. So beginner's mindset is an important mindset to have for you to be able to grow. Because there's some people, man. You'll run into them out there. They walk in like they are the hottest mess in the room. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And their ego is like hitting the clouds in the sky. And maybe they have a lot of accomplishments and maybe they've done a lot of good things. And I'm not hating on them. I'm just more power to them. But humility is a key aspect of life. And so,
Yeah.
either you work hard and stay humble, or or eventually you're gonna see yourself fly off of the back of a horse, and land on your behind. That day will come. I 100% guarantee that. And so work hard, stay humble, and build God's kingdom.
Wow. Dude, it says so much there, bro. It's so like,
I mean, even in the context of church, you walk
yeah.
into a church, and yeah, influence is not just in church. Influence is, leadership, right? Leadership is influence. Influence is leadership. And so, in the context of church, I laugh, when there's a leader who thinks he's above, you know,
Mm,
him. It's like, dude,
yeah.
like, get off the high horse, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
you're called to be a slave and a servant. And if you don't understand what the definition of those things are in the dictionary, then you don't need to be in leadership. You have the
Yeah.
wrong concept of leadership. Not
Yeah.
just in the church, but I'm talking about even in the corporate world. I worked in the corporate world, professionally for 10 years with the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, in my industry. I've been in a lot of rooms with a lot of important people within my industry, and not just my industry, but even with political leaders several times. We all go to the bathroom the same way. We all eat the same.
Yeah.
We're human beings, bro. And so the importance of humility is something that, we need to look at deep down and say, hey, am I humble enough, to fold chairs and to pick up tables and to serve the people, and that's
Yeah.
why I said what I said at the beginning, like I build a business for people, not
Yeah.
for myself. I benefit
Yeah.
already, from it.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
no, I think that's important. What you said right now, I've come across probably not as many high level people as yourself, but I've been around a few people that have carried an ego and thought they were more than, and yeah, life does come crashing down at some point, and the realizing and recognizing at some point that that is a man, that is a woman, that is a human being. Like you said, they go to the bathroom just like I do. They put their pants on in the morning and they have to get dressed. They got to brush their hair, brush their teeth. Like, it's the same thing behind the scenes. But as soon as they step out the door, it's like they put on this like facade that doesn't always, kind of carry through life. It's this morning I have a John Maxwell calendar. And so what you were talking about leadership, it says respect is vital to a leader. Without it, no one follows. Without it, no one follows. Title or position will not help it. With it, so with respect, everyone follows, and title or position are not needed. So, basically saying that, you know, when you have someone's respect because of the work that you've done, because of, not needing the accolades, right? Not needing someone to pat you on the back, but just doing the work. I remember one morning prayer, and I don't know what you were getting ready for, but I knew who you were from talking to other people. We hadn't really had a relationship yet, but I remember popping into the sanctuary and you were moving chairs. And I was like, dang, he's just moving chairs, like, putting chairs back in order or pack. I was like, that's the right heart that we need to operate in life with, is, that servant's heart of, no matter what your, title is outside in the world, in the business world, in the marketplace, you are still willing to pick up a piece of trash, move a chair, move a table, serve.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the work needs to get done, bro. Somebody's got to do it. And
Yeah.
so, I get to be a part of that too. I enjoy it. I love it. It's part of who I am, and it's great. And I'll continue to do that stuff. I think about our pastor, our lead pastor at the church. I saw his son yesterday, and he walks in, and he could very well say, "Hey, give me a seat at the front of the front row." And the guy goes out, sits out in the back in the bleacher area. And he's just sitting there, and enjoying the service. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's a humble dude, man. Like, he could say, "Hey, where's my seat at the front row?"
Yeah.
He goes and sits among the people like that. Those are the examples that I have in my life, where I can say, "Hey, wait a minute. Like, I don't need a seat at the front row. If you give me one, great. But if you don't, I'll sit with the people.
And that's scripture, right? That's a scripture,
100%
right?
scripture. That's where I learned it, bro.
Yeah.
And so, it's just part of who we are, who we get to be. And I think a lot of times, people grow in influence and they want to stop doing certain things. And I get it, to a degree. Uh, but at the same time, like, hey, bro, like, you saw me moving chairs and whatnot. Maybe you were like, whoa, what's up with that? Hey, this is just part of what I get to do, and I love it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I definitely saw it as, this is a servant right here. This is a man with a servant's heart, and he's just here to serve the house. And so, yeah, it's good to see that. And I tend to, I'm an observer. And so I watch and I notice what people are doing and how they do it, and, body language. I pay attention to that stuff. And so when I see subtle stuff like that, I'm like, that's a good man right there. He's doing it right, and I try to acknowledge it when I can. So yeah, props, bro. Props. Let's see. I had so you talk about mindset a lot. You've done a lot of coaching. I'm thinking, when we're having that whole conversation right now, I started thinking a lot about people who, you know, have the ego, who don't see, or, maybe just don't know yet because they're young, and they've had an upbringing, a way of life that their mindset is just kind of tweaked. How would you, because I'm sure you've come across a lot of young people, right? With, and growing up in National City, the different organizations you've worked with, different population. What is your kind of first goal when you talk to someone that you kind of see their life is going in the wrong direction, to maybe, have a conversation with that person?
Yeah. So I would say, like, whether it's going in the wrong direction or in the good direction, life is about, what do you want, right?
Mm,
Like, what do you want out of life? And so that's usually the first question that I ask, like, what do you want? The second question I'll ask is, why do you want it? And then the
mm,
third question I ask is, what are you willing to do to get it? You know,
mm,
so moving people from wish, wanting, and hoping to real results, right? Because if you ask somebody, what do you want? And they say, well, I want a job. Okay, good. What are you willing to do to get a job? Well, I'm going to go apply, I'm going to go ask some friends. And, a month later, they still don't have a job. I go, you don't really want a job.
mm.
Because if you really wanted a job, you would find 10, 50 places to go apply, knock on doors. And when you start to really knock on 10 to 50 doors a day, you're going to find a job
Yeah.
faster than you think you can,
Just
right?
by numbers, sheer numbers, right?
You know what I'm saying? So real quick, you find out who wants what and who doesn't want what. You know what I'm saying? So that's the mindset, right, behind, or better said, the thinking behind their actions, right? What's the thinking behind you going to apply, to 3 places in 5 days? Could you at least go to 1 place a day, right? If you want a job, whatever it is, maybe you don't want a job. You want to start a company, right? So
Hmm.
you want to start a company. The first thing you shouldn't do is go build a social media profile for the company. The first thing you should do is go find a lawyer or go find someone who can do an S corp or corporation, or whatever it is you're electing, LLCs, whatever you want to do, right? And then that's your starting point. Understand, what it takes to build a company, right? You're gonna have a account, a lawyer, CPA, whatever. You start putting your team together and you start to really putting energy towards building the company in the right way, understanding the tax system. Like, go do a seminar or whatever it is you need to do, but equip yourself to understand what it takes to build a company, and then move from that point. You really want that, then you're really going to do it. And so, it's always about, what do you want and why do you want it, and what are you willing to take? What are you willing to do to get that done? So just orienting people, in the right way, in the right path. Because most of the time you'll find that people don't think that way structurally. You know, they're thinking like, let me go start a social media page and let me go tell all my friends. But yet you don't have a bank account, you don't have any infrastructure to build, a company to give you an opportunity to do something with your life. Everything else comes after that. You know what I mean? And even like, do you have the habits that it takes to think every day through how you're going to build this company, right? Do you have the mentors in your life, the coaches in your life? Do you have the people in your life that are going to help, speak into you in this journey and in this process? And so there's a lot of components to it. And so, if it's someone who's having a bad season in life and they're making all the wrong choices, then it's a different approach. It's either you live you know, on the upper side of the line, or you're living on the lower side of the line, right? If you live in the frequency of love, you're always going to confront opportunity and possibility. And if you live below the line, you're always going to feel threatened, attacked, and filled with fear. And so there's two frequencies in this life. It's the frequency of love or the frequency of fear. Where do you live? Do you live in the, below the line, and you're constantly facing resentment, revenge, and resistance, and then those three R's are kind of a part of who you are in your life. And those produce the results that don't serve you, right? So what actions are you taking that are serving you, and what actions are you continuing to take that don't serve you, right? And so it's all about results, man. Life is a result. If you're gonna if you're gonna be in a season where you're challenged in a lot of ways and you're making all the wrong decisions, then the consequences and the results of those decisions are going to be real, and you're going to have to face them. And you could avoid them for now or resist them for now, but eventually you're going to come face to face with them and deal with whatever it is you're doing that's throwing you off. So I would say, get it together and work on becoming a better version of yourself.
What challenges have you had to overcome in your life, growing up? Obviously early on there was a language barrier, but what other things have you had to face that people, that would probably stop most people, right? That would just kind of shut it down for them.
Yeah, I would say I had to get rid of a lot of people in my life that weren't,
Mm.
you
So your
know,
circle, you had
my
to make sure your
circle, yeah,
circle
my
was right.
circle, my circle of friends that weren't necessarily adding value to my life. So I
Mm.
had to kind of identify who was not, a person that I need in my life. So, just eliminating the people around you. And, also because those people not only influence you in a negative way, but they also have a certain mindset, and they think a certain way. And, they have a certain, uh, you know, they have different behavioral patterns and whatnot. And so getting rid of people, I would say early on, and I'm talking about, this was like in my teenage years,
Mm.
because a lot of those people were not allowing me to progress or move in the direction that I wanted to be in, but also overcoming a lot of scarcity and poverty mindset as well. Growing up in a Latino family in National City with limited income, one working adult in my family, my dad, and then, having two brothers, three sisters. We were the Mexican Brady Bunch at the time in the early 80s. Just both my parents came from a lot of scarcity in their lives, and that just got transferred into our lives. And just not having the right people, even growing up, that inspired me to create something better for myself. I had to go on my own journey where I started to say, okay, you know, um, how can I create a life that best serves me and my family in the future? And a lot of that had to do with like my even personal calling, like in the church. Early on, I didn't have like a youth pastor who interacted with me, who I could say mentored me and helped me and guided me. There was a big void in my life in that aspect growing up in a church. I was actually talking to my mom a couple of days ago, like, Mom, I don't remember who my youth pastor was when I was 13 years old. Because when I was 13 years old, that's when I really spun out of control. It was a critical age in that time. And so I didn't have any like spiritual guidance or any spiritual leaders to help me. And so I had to overcome a lot of those mindsets, over the course of time. More than anything, I think there was a season in my life where I was a survivor, where everything in my life was about how can I survive past this season. The problem with that was that I was surviving from one season to the next season to the next season. And that surviving mindset kept me down. And that surviving mindset became like this, as I got older, it was like I was living from like paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. And I was just surviving to surviving. And that was very challenging because you had a limited income. You had, just you did what you could with what you had, and you just lived through it. And there's nothing wrong with that. People do that. That's the American way of life, right? 70% of people have a 9 to 5. I think that's what it was. I can't remember the exact statistic, but it came to a point where I'm like, I don't like this lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to go out and build something for myself so that I don't have to live this way. And so, even as my wife and I, we've been married, going on 32 years. So we've had this incredible journey, like where, we're borrowing money to put gas in the car. At one point we're so young, we're so broke, and I still think about those days. Like, can I borrow $30 till Friday so that I can put gas in my car to get to work? And it was rough and it was tough. And I look at myself, I'm like, this is not what I want to do. And I remember even when my daughter was born, I went to a supermarket store, and when the cashier told me the total, I was short like $10. And so I was buying her formula, right? Because I refused to go to like the welfare system, and not because I was proud. And I definitely needed it. Like I needed to go like on a WIC program, or, I was so young, and I needed help. But I was so proud, I would say, I don't know, that I just didn't want to go and ask anybody for a hand me down. I figured I got to figure this thing out myself. And so I had to put one of the formulas back, and I was only able to afford one. And when I walked out of that grocery store, I was angry because I said, this will never happen to me again.
Yeah.
And so got past that surviving season. I said, I got to do something to get myself moving forward. And a lot of my drive came from that, and I had this encounter with God, like literally like 6 to 8 months after that experience. I had this encounter, this collision with God. And I felt like the Lord said in that moment, like, I've called you to reach a generation for Jesus. And that's when a lot of things started to shift.
How old were you then?
I was 23 years old when that happened. I was 23 years old, and I had this encounter. I recommitted my life to Jesus because I'd been gone for like 10 years since I was 13 is when I kind of spun off. So recommitted my life to the Lord and came back. And after this camp that I went to, and looked at the sky, and I said, the sky is really blue. Looked at the grass and said, the grass is really green. Like, the world just became just enlightened. And yeah, and all of a sudden I'm like on this new journey, you know, believing that God had called me to reach a generation for Jesus. And that's where a lot of the ministry started to really unfold in my life. And so, yeah, it was an incredible journey.
Going back to the story you were talking about, with the grocery store and being $10 short, formula for your daughter. And I'm trying to figure out, and I want to, hopefully you have an answer, or some sort of wisdom. What is it? Like, I want to know, is there something we can teach people or help people with to when you reach those points in your life, because we all get them, just like you said, it's American way of life. We all struggle, we all have challenges. To help people make that decision to say, this is not going to be my life. I'm not going to live this way. And I know everybody's background situation, is different. But is there something that can be said to someone, whether it's a mentor, or whether it's words? Like, I don't know. It just makes me think like people shouldn't have to struggle, right? I mean, and I don't mean there's not going to be struggle. I just mean like don't get to that place in your life where you just give up and you quit. Like, what pushed you over? What is it that that made you, number one, say that thing, this is not going to happen to me again.
Mhm.
And number two, to actually move towards that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, as you're talking about it and kind of looking for an answer to that, I would say most of my coaching practice has been around experiential learning. And so when you have an experience, you learn something.
Mm,
So what you just talked about was a lot of knowledge, informative knowledge. Like you don't want have, these types of, encounters, so to speak, right? Like, but when you experience something, you learn, right? That's called wisdom. So you go from knowledge to wisdom. So wisdom is experiential. You actually learn. Some people have experience and still not learn. You know what I'm saying?
right. Yeah, that's where I'm like, there's people
Lack
that
of
do
wisdom.
have the experience, but they don't learn.
Yeah. Some people will have the experience but still not learn, and they'll have multiple experiences, right? And still not learn. And you go back to the Bible, and there's a lot of context on that. But
Mm,
I
mhm.
mean, for me personally, in that moment, again, the way I'm built, the way I'm driven, it was a experiential learning experience where I experienced something that I said I'll never want to experience this in my life, right? So nowadays we go out to eat, and kids are naturally can be greedy, I would say, right? Like you buy a kid a what is it, McDonald's, whatever you call it, right? Like kids
Happy
meal,
meal.
Happy Meal.
Happy meal.
You buy them a Happy Meal, and they get a small fry, and they get their hamburger or whatever, and then you sit them at a table, and one kid grabs one fry from that little small pack, and that kid will throw a fit, right? And start crying. It's like, why'd you take my fries? Right? You took one fry, bro. You didn't take your
Yeah.
fries, right?
Yeah.
And so kids will naturally respond, and not so much they're greedy, they just don't know. They feel like something's being taken away from them. And it's very
Right.
limited, right? It's very limited, right? Growing up, my mom says, you want chocolate or you want vanilla? I said, Mom, I want chocolate and vanilla. She said, no, you gotta have chocolate or vanilla, right? And so it's either this or that. And I teach my grandkids it's this and that, right? And so when we sit at the table, whatever we're eating, like my grandkids will share. My granddaughter can grab something from my grandson's plate and eat it, and nobody throws a fit, because what I taught them is like, if we need to buy the pizza restaurant, we're going to buy the pizza restaurant. We're never going to run out of pizza.
More.
There's more.
Yeah.
And so my grandson, he cracks me up because he'll be eating pizza. We went to the stadium last week, and he's eating pizza, and my granddaughter grabs pizza, and they're just having fun. Nobody's feeling threatened by the lack and the scarcity of pizza, because they know we can go buy 4 or 5 boxes of pizza until
Yeah.
they've had
Yeah.
some pizza of our
So they're
pizza.
sick of pizza.
You know what I'm saying? So you get to a place of abundance is what I mean. You go from the scarcity, this lack, you experience scarcity and lack. You don't want to live there. And so and Jesus says it, right? That he's come to give life and life in abundance. And
Yeah.
so what I've done is I'm building an abundance mindset, right? In not only my grandkids, but in my wife and even my daughter. Like, I'm building that abundance mindset. How do we go from this or that to that and this and be abundant in everything, right? And that becomes a value. It's a core value of mine, right? And so I have my own core value system that every day, I get to live by these core values. Like, these things represent who I am, and that's how I choose to live.
What are some of those core values?
The first one is commitment. My first core value is commitment. And the reason that I chose commitment is because I found myself half-assing through life, right? You pick up a book, you read half of it, you never pick it up again. You start something, you never finish it, right? And so you're not committed to doing what you say you're going to do. Because if I can't commit to you, then I can't commit to anybody else, right? And so commitment is something that we have to be ready to do. And the second one is courage, right? Because I find that it'll take courage for me to stay committed. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so courage is my second value. And then third is responsibility, right? I'm responsible for my actions and my choices, and I get to live from a place of responsibility. And the opposite of that is victim. right? You're either a victim or you're responsible. You take responsibility over your actions and your choices. And then obviously the fourth is abundance, right? I get to be abundant. And then the last one is joy, right? Because I just feel like the joy of the Lord is should be a part of my day, whether I'm experiencing a great day or I'm having one of the most challenging days of my life. Like, how do I find joy in that? And so those are my five core values that I get to live by every day.
Is that something that you now, I guess, has just become default when you get up in the morning? You're already kind of running through that. That's already part of your DNA, right? Yeah.
Yep, it's part of my DNA. It's part of who I am. It's part of my everyday breathing life. So absolutely.
Cool. I read somewhere in kind of doing some research here, your life and coaching motto. Tell me if this is wrong. I am no longer drifting. I am choosing my path. Is that something you've said before?
Yeah, that's where the commitment piece comes from, right? Because when you're not committed, you're drifting from this to that, from this to that, incomplete, right? But when you're no longer drifting, is because you're committed to a process.
Mm,
That's where that comes from.
okay. And your coaching framework: discover, develop, deploy.
Yeah.
Yeah. In your experience coaching global executives and change makers, which of these three stages do leaders typically get stuck in the most, and why?
Yeah. So essentially, what we do is in the program is a three-step pillar, right? So to speak. So you start with the personal mastery, right? And the idea of personal mastery is how do I conquer who I am, right? How do I master my thoughts? How do I master the mindset? How do I build those things that I can now start to build what I want? And that's a process, right? You work through that. You work through that. There's different tools that we use in order to
Hmm.
help you work through that, and also in order to help you identify and see here are the roadblocks. Here are the things in my life right now that are creating these belief systems, these behavior patterns, right? Creating culture. So we once we get you past that stage where you're confident enough, like you have a core value system in your life,
Mm,
other elements in your life that you're practicing and you're now putting in place, because you need anchors, right? The core value systems, those are all anchors. And you're
mm,
anchoring your way across this path that you're building. And then you move into the second phase of our development stage. And that's where you get to work on a project. Like you have an entrepreneurial idea. Okay, so like how do I launch this project? And maybe you already have one and maybe you're already doing something, but what are some of the things that are preventing you from scaling, right? Do you have all the systems in place, right, so to speak? Or is everything in place for you to be able to scale to where you want to go? Everything from like just looking at the organization and saying, okay, we have this is our team, this is our revenue, this is our goal, this is whatever. We'll look at the whole skeleton and we'll say, okay, here, how can we build more efficiency in this operation and move this thing forward? And then we have an international track too, because we are most of our business is internationally. So right, we're dealing with a lot of people across different countries. So if you have an internet, if your business is doing international transactions, then we can help you with that, set up that as well. And then the third tier of the coaching program is now that you have a successful company, you've overcome a lot of those challenges, you're still growing the company. You know, what can we do to contribute to the world, right? And that is really where that's really where I like to live, right? So I've taken teams all across Latin America with those
mhm,
kind of experience and taking them to communities and places that we've worked on. One of the countries that I've worked for, that I'm working in for more than a decade, is Costa Rica. And so we were able to go to Costa Rica. We were able to build a nonprofit on the ground with locals there, and then provide services and resources to students in the community. We built a robotics education program there. We donated some robots. We did a robotics mural. We did a robotics conference. We brought robotics teachers from the US. I mean, dude, we legitly like took care of this neighborhood, right? And so
mm,
like this is like the hood, right? The barrio. Like this is where there is no green grass and beautiful flowers,
mm,
but we turned it into a space where kids can now come and learn on robotics education. And so, when you have a guy who's coming in from, a company that he's built and he wants to do something, then hey, we take him to a site like that. He can see a lot of what's happening there. And we want people to get involved, right? Ultimately, it's our financial engine. Like we want people getting involved in these different projects, whether it's in Uganda. We have projects in Uganda. We have projects in India. A lot of our projects are in Latin America. Got projects going on in Cuba right now. We have potential to work in the DR, Colombia, Guatemala, Mexico. We got a lot of stuff going on in Mexico. Matter of fact, today we're putting up an event this weekend in Mexico. So we have a lot of things moving, right now, and we haven't stopped for like the last 2 decades. And so how do we get people involved? So that third tier in the coaching program is teaching people. And you know what? At the end of the day, you don't have to be involved in our projects. Go find
Mhm.
to get involved in and make a difference there.
Sheesh, you got so much, Carlos. That gives just so much, so deep. Talk to me. I saw a post yesterday that you were in. Talk to me about Catherine's kids.
Yeah, so Catherine's Kids has been around since 2005. It was started by a gentleman. His name is Jerry McTaggart. Jerry was an orphan, and his mom was Catherine. And so, she cared for him, and Jerry became, a successful business owner, and eventually founded this nonprofit. It was then transferred to a church, and the church ran it for about 5 years, I think. And then about a year and a half ago, myself and one of my friends in Ensenada took over the operations, and we have special needs kids. So we were there yesterday, and Catherine's Kids, it's changed completely and dramatically. I would love to invite the viewers to come and visit. Anybody interested in that, come and see and visit. So I'm the president of the organization in the U.S., Catherine Kids USA. I oversee the operations on the U.S. side, all the legal matters, all the fundraising, all the support collecting, all that. So get involved. And then my friend Bernardo, he oversees all the day-to-day operations, the staff, the children, making sure everybody's well fed, making sure everybody's well taken care of. So these are special need kids. So a lot of them have like autism, Down syndrome. We have one that has cerebral palsy, who has 3 nurses, 24-hour care. And it's just a great way, to serve Baja. I've been involved in Baja for like 30 years at some capacity, whether it was leading teams to orphanages or to communities, and still involved in Baja. I have some cutbacks now with the orphanage. I was on the board of Buena Onda there for a while, and just having to like separate myself from certain organizations so I can put more focus into ours. But yeah, it's Catherine's Kids. It's a beautiful, go check it out, Catherine'sKidsUSA.com. And it's a beautiful work and opportunity that we get to do. And never thought in my life that I would be in this role or be involved in something at this magnitude. But hey, the Lord brought it into my life, and I saw it as a way of how can I serve the kids, and is what we do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw a post yesterday from Myra, and I was like, "Hey, this is Carlos. What's Catherine's kids?" Like, I just got curious. And so, is it Catherine with a K or Catherine with a C?
Catherine with a C. Yeah, Catherine'sKidsUSA.com. Or you can find them on Instagram. We just got a partnership with Oxxo. Oxxo is like the largest convenience store chain in Mexico. And so we just launched an initiative where Oxxo, if you round off your purchase to the nearest dollar, they will donate that round off chain to Catherine's Kids. If you're in Rosarito, Ensenada, or San Quintin, and you go visit an Oxxo, tell them you want to round off your money so that we can get it.
Cool. Okay, will do. Talk to me about the Padres.
But yeah, so Padres journey, I've been on this journey with the San Diego Padres for the last 12 seasons. This is my 12th season as a chaplain, Spanish chaplain specifically. So I get to work with the Latino players on the team, provide a weekly chapel during homestands for both players, coaches, umpires, staff, whoever wants to come. It's voluntarily. So, I show up there Sunday morning about 9 o'clock and leave there, about 12:30, just kind of offer my services. People come to my chapel, and just what I do during chapel is people ask me all the time is just just prayer requests. We pray. Also, I'm teaching through a certain part right now. I'm teaching through Genesis. So baseball chapel gives us the outlines. We put our messages together. It becomes really theological. Really, there's a lot of prep that goes into that. I feel like a Sunday morning preacher in a way, because there's so much investment of time that
Yeah.
has to go into putting that together. Yeah, I mean, as a chaplain, it's been a incredible season. I've built friendships with some of the superstars that people see, on television or whether at the stadium. I've been to their baby showers. I've been to the kids' birthdays. I've been to some of their apartments. You know what? Just whatever it is that they need from me during the time that I'm there, or during whatever they need, I'm available as a chaplain for 'em.
So even outside of Sundays, even outside of
Oh, yeah.
homestand,
Yeah.
yeah.
Outside of Sundays, outside of homestand, I travel to spring training once a week, once a year, and just provide chapel services to the guys during spring training. And then I had the opportunity to go to Mexico City during the Mexico City series and do chapel with the guys out of Mexico City. So that was kind of cool. But most importantly, I'm just there to serve and to teach them the Bible.
So curious, just because I don't know, and when someone says chapel, they think of a church or a room. Even in a hospital, it's a small little room, looks like a church. Is it like that at the stadium? Is it just an office?
Yeah, they don't have a chapel like a sanctuary style though. It's just a family room, It's a family room. It's a really nice, comfortable room. Very well cleaned, very well air conditioned. It's just we walk couches, and we'll sit in this family room and spend some time together.
Okay, so we're winding down now. I want you to talk a little bit about you've called yourself in the past a sneakerhead.
Mm.
Talk to me about your sneaker journey and what you love about it. What
Yeah, so basically, you could see the sneaker lineup right here, bro.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have the sneaker lineup right here.
Are
So
those your
1985, Air Jordan released the Chicago's, the AJ1s. They had their debut, and I got a pair of Air Jordans for Christmas that year, and I was really intrigued by the beauty of the shoe, I would say at the time. And from that point forward, I started to wear, Diodoras. I started to wear tons of different Jordans, 1988 Jordan 3s. And I was just really drawn by that whole culture, right? The culture, the fashion of the 80s. And, the shoe industry wasn't the shoe industry back then. It was just shoes. Sneakerheads came much, much later, you know?
yeah?
And so, like, I was a sneakerhead before there was a sneakerhead. And so I started this collection. And so now, I have a nice Jordan collection in my house. And also these are all golf edition Jordans.
Oh, okay.
My grandson, he had Jordan since the day he was born. And so, like, he has every Jordan you can think of. And I have them in these bins, right? So that when he grows older, he can have these bins and bins of like Air Jordan shoes that he wore as an infant.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean, Jordan is like, for me, he's from my era, growing
yeah.
up in the mid '80s. He's just for me, he's the GOAT. I don't care how you put it, you know. And in your era, whoever, I don't want to mention names, right? Because for me, it's Jordan. But whoever it is in your era, then that's what it is, right? Well, for me, Jordan is iconic. He's iconic, and he's here to stay much, much, much after he's gone. But yeah, so I'm a big Jordan fan, and I got to stop collecting stuff because my house is really getting swamped with a bunch of stuff. Like, I could just go on and on and on and on of the amount of stuff that I have, because I grew up in a generation that collected comics, collected
Mm,
baseball cards, collected
right.
this or that. There was a lot of like collections going on when I was a teenager. So I have like this collection mindset,
Yeah.
So I have a lot of different. I usually see the collection up here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll spin off, man. And I just enjoy collecting different things.
So your collections range from shoes to F1 memorabilia.
Yeah.
What is the thing that
My wife
that
is
you
kind of scared right now because I'm collecting Rolex watches now.
shoot?
You know, so there's just like different things, man. I just there's certain things that I really enjoy, and for me, it's like just everything's gonna go to my grandson. Like
Mm,
just saving it for him, man. But
all legacy stuff, right?
yeah, I have tons of hats. I mean, I can get shoes. Oh my god, not just Jordan shoes, but like I have all kinds of other shoes. I gotta stop buying shoes. It's like all these different shoes, and I must have like 100 pairs of shoes, bro. I could wear a shoe every day for 100 days, different shoe every day
That's
for.
one thing I would notice when I was at morning prayer. Like I would look down sometimes and I'd see your shoes. I was like, oh, he's got some bright shoes on this morning. Some brighty shoes, something. It's always different.
Yeah, so I gotta start. My wife's like, give all this stuff away, like just get rid of it. Like I hoard it, I guess, but I definitely need to give. And I don't like to sell anything. Like I'm not the guy that sells stuff. I
Yeah,
just give it away
yeah,
because for
yeah, yeah.
me, if it costs, if it has a high value price, like, and you're gonna go sell it for like a tenth of that, like give it to somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I give a lot of stuff away too. So
You talked earlier on in the interview. You talked about that you gravitate towards things that something grabs your attention. You kind of will focus in on that. Is there anything right now outside of what you're doing, businesses or whatever? Is there anything else that you're kind of like, oh, like what's this about? What direction can I go in here?
no, as I gotten older, shoot, man. I mean, I like to say there's three things that I really enjoy. Right. One is you see this bottle of wine right there.
Yeah.
I've gotten into wine lately. I'm not a big
Okay.
wine drinker, okay, but
Uh-huh.
I love to learn the process because everything
Mm,
is a process. And specifically wine, the process has a lot of meaningful things for life. And so I enjoy
mm,
learning about the process. So I've learned a lot about wine. I actually took a online class on wine. Like there's this online school for wine that takes you to like a sommelier certificate.
hmm.
And so I'm kind of in that journey right now where I'm kind of going through the wine course online. Not to become a sommelier, but if I do, well, that's it's just another pin on. Yeah, but I love to learn about things, and one specific thing is wine. The other thing, the reason why I kept going back to Costa Rica is because I love to learn about coffee, and my dream is to one day buy a coffee field in Costa Rica, which I almost did a couple years back. I did a cash offer, and the guy didn't take it, which
Wow.
I'm kind of glad he didn't take it because it would have been a self-destructing move. But I love to learn about coffee, and I've been all over Latin America and collecting coffee everywhere. I was just at the San Diego World of Coffee, which is one of the best shows that I've been to. It made me a lot of money, just put it that way. Yeah.
Wow.
But I was able to connect with some of the Colombian coffee growers, which I met in Colombia when I was there several years back. But I love to learn about coffee and where different coffee in the world is grown, right? And Latin America, obviously, being one of the high producers of coffee in Mexico and whatnot. So I'm learning, even though I'm not a big coffee drinker. Now think about that again. I'm not a big wine drinker. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I don't drink coffee every day, but I love to learn about coffee. So I know a lot about coffee and I know a lot about wine. And then thirdly, because I've been to Cuba 4 times, I love to learn about cigars. And I'm not a cigar smoker, so to speak, right? But I love to learn about the process of cigar making. So I would say coffee, cigars, and wine, like those are the three things that have a lot of my interest.
Yeah.
And I get to learn a lot about those three specific things.
And it's just, it sounds like it's more hobby. Like it's
That's
not like,
really more hobby, absolutely. And then fourth, which is something that I've gotten into more. Matter of fact, I just had a custom grill rolled into my office right before we started this conversation.
oh, that's what that was.
I have like that's like my fifth custom grill, right? That I've got. So my house, there's a brick pizza oven, and then I have all these different grills, different sizes. They all have different purposes. But this one's super cool, dude. I'll text you a picture. But I started to attend the culinary school in Tijuana, which is one of the best culinary schools in Mexico. And so I'm starting to take different coursework there. obviously I'm involved at church in to a certain capacity. So, but my goal is to one day attend that culinary school full time, and then spend some time, learning about cooking in the kitchen and whatnot. So I would
For
say
hobby or for business?
for hobby, bro. I won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I refuse to start a business with it. Like I won't enjoy it. I enjoy when
Mm,
I
mm.
for people. Like at my connect group, they come and we'll cook from whatever. But I've been asked to do like the captain's retreat over at the church and cater for those guys. And I enjoy that, 25 guys, whatever. But I don't really like I'm not thinking about starting a business and me being the good guy in the back or whatever. Like
Yeah.
chefs have roles to play, right?
Mhm.
I'm not that guy playing that role. I got bigger fish to fry is what I like to say, right? But I really enjoy cooking too. So I've traveled some. I've traveled through Mexico and the US um, to learn more and more on my grill skill.
When you say grills, is the smokers involved in that, or do
No,
you do
I'm not
smoke?
a
Do
big
you smoke?
smoker guy.
Okay. Okay.
I'm more like open flame grill. I cook with red oak. I like cooking with red oak specifically. Uh, gives the food a good taste. I would say I cook really clean, really clean. Use a lot of wood in my cooking. Food tastes better. I do use certain specific charcoals. Like if you go down to like one of those like Ace Hardware or you go to like a barbecue galore, they have very specific charcoal products. And so I'll use some of the very specific, more high quality charcoal. But I
You're
love
not necessarily a CVS, Ralph's, Kingsford.
no, I don't want nobody coming over and the food tastes like lighter fluid. You know what I mean? Like forget
Yeah,
just you want to have a good meal, you got to cook it right.
it's cool. Um, Finally, GoMail Plus. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, 2027 we're launching GoMail Plus. The websites are actually already up. I don't know if you got a chance to see it. But it's a freight forwarding and logistics, a mail forwarding and logistics company that we're gonna be able to help people in the U.S. and Mexico kind of move mail freight back and forth. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that project. There's some challenges with it, but working with like UPS, FedEx, DHL, some of the international carriers, along with carriers in Mexico that, Castores and a bunch of other guys that are also moving freight, mail freight, or, any logistics opportunities and expand that. I want to expand into El Paso, Texas, which I was supposed to be there this week, but I couldn't get certain appointments down. But we're expanding to El Paso, Texas. So the goal is to be in Laredo, El Paso, Nogales, Mexicali, and San Diego. So we'll have transactions coming across 5 ports of entries throughout the Arizona, Texas, and California, Mexican border. So a lot of work, but
How did that whole thing transpire?
just the beginning of the vision, man.
Yeah,
I'll take a picture of our vision board and you can see it. Part of our vision.
nice. All right. Last 60 seconds here. If you got a message for the mavens of the world, what would you say to them?
Work hard, stay humble. Everything's about, what you're willing to do and you'll get the result. If you're looking for the result, what are you willing to do to get it? So work hard, stay humble, man. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you for your time today, Carlos.
Yeah,
Appreciate you
man.
being here.
Thank you for
And
having me on.
yeah, yeah,
Hopes this will benefit somebody. If it
yeah,
does,
yeah,
put a comment. Let
yeah,
us.
yeah, definitely.
All right.
Comment, like, subscribe. Check out all of the links that we will have in the comment section here. And go check out Carlos Nicasio, the man, the myth, the legend.
Peace.